Greetings and welcome to Zord Planetary Space Program episode 17, where time passes in wait for the Eve transfer window. And now that the time has come, we will begin launching our crafts from Beta Station. We start with what's going to become the station core, the fuel tanker, the modified fuel tanker, which I call a space station core. And we're gonna do these interplanetary launches like we usually do. We launch from Minmus at the correct time in Minmus's orbit around Kerbin, and then we go down to Kerbin periaps, add a little bit of speed, and off we go. My thinking here is that we can launch several crafts during the same orbit of Beta Station and have them launch together with just a few minutes in between. So I take this hub, which I named the Eve Station hub to keep it less confusing, because it got a quite high thrust to weight ratio with that Poodle engine. So I think we should be able to have time to launch this one and the station core at the same time, at the same point in Beta Station orbit. Well, yeah, I think you get the picture. So we do a burn of 180 meters per second to break Minmus orbit and get down to a low Kerbin periaps. It only takes a few seconds with this craft. We're gonna do a lot of alarms on this episode, and I love alarms. Now here I see that it's quite a while to wait to get the station, to get the tanker to the position in Minmus orbit where we're gonna launch. So I undock this station supply, the third and final vehicle that's going to make up the Eve station, containing, among other things, the the service ship and an extra fuel tanker. So I launched this one, and yeah, this way we have all three parts of the Eve station on the way at the same time. So they're going to launch in a nice tight cluster instead of a string of ships like we had when we launched the Joule station, which has yet to get even close to Joule. And now we have the final ship here, the tanker, the station itself, you could say. It's turn to break Minmus orbit and get on the road. These burns are a little bit longer than the first one. You see that this orbit I accidentally get inclined, and we'll see what effect that has when we do the burn to go into Planetary. So we do a lot of SOI changes in this episode, and I prefer to do the SOI changes with low or no time warp, because especially here I have a periaps set below 100,000 meters, but above the atmosphere, and I want it to stay that way. So you gotta be careful when you transfer over the SOI limits. So I have alarms for that, so we're gonna sit and watch every single one. Maybe. So I plan the maneuvers as soon as I get into Kerbin orbit, and I did not do it in Minmus orbit, because then we have several orbits away, or several SOI changes away when we're gonna plan the orbit, and these floating point errors that make the maneuver nodes move around and change values, they compound and they get real bad. So I wait to do the planning until we are in Kerbin orbit, because then it's not a problem. And also I plan all the maneuvers while all of the crafts are still high up in Kerbin orbit, and we save the maneuver nodes in Kerbal Alarm Clock, which is beautiful. And here we see the effects of an inclined orbit when going into interplanetary space. I try doing the normal anti-normal as much as I would need to do the correction burn later, see if it has an effect. And it has a very small effect. So you save fuel by disregarding your inclination when going into Planetary and doing a proper inclination change out in solar orbit. So that's all the maneuvers planned, and now we're gonna warp ahead like a day until the craft starts appearing at Kerbin Periapse. And this is the least well-designed craft of them all because it's sort of dispensable. It's single use, and it has non-optimal placement of the solar panels. So I need to turn it to allow it to get some power before the node. Because yeah, well, the engine does generate electricity, but not a whole lot. But there we go. The craft is on its way, and we're just gonna bring the maneuver node down to 0.0 because we planned this out, and we want to get this, you know, on the spot from the start, like a professional space program. We can imagine that we are. So now we just do this 3 times. Next craft is the central tanker, strangely enough, because this is the first one I launched from Minimus and the third one to escape Minimus. So it's a bit weird. We're very lucky to have this alarm clock. It makes sense of everything, or it understands the things that I do not. And the final craft, again, the nodes or the maneuvers from Kerbin orbit to Eve orbit are actually slower, shorter than the nodes to break Minimus orbits. We have like 125 meters per second to escape Kerbin and get that in Eve intercept, and of course a plane change on that. So it pays very well. And this is me trying to do a cinematic shot, but lining up the craft so it doesn't have any electricity and having the lights on make it flicker like crazy. So we turned spacecraft towards the sun to get some electricity, which is probably a good idea. Now we have our cinematic shot. Beautiful. And we also have the Kerbal alarm clock to remind us when it's time to pay attention to the game and not just gawk at it. And plan a node because apparently we missed one. Even counter like so. Yep. So that's an SOI change. Next ship also gonna do its SOI change. Here we go. Just a few more seconds. And it's a noteworthy difference in height and velocity of the crafts here. Of course, because some of them have their values compared to Kerbin, and some have their values compared to the sun, which makes a significant difference. But it's amusing to look at the differences in crafts that are so close together and apparently so far apart. But yeah, you see we have this nice cluster of ships rather than the string of ships that's going to Joule. And I'm also going to name these to make it less confusing, so that everything is called Eve Station something. Here we go, looking good. Just gonna do the last one as well, which would be the Eve Station tanker. Yeah, that's accurate enough. So there we go. That's how to build an Eve station, or how to send one through the mail. Now, the last thing we're gonna do in this episode is to take care of the correction burn for the Dress lander with the crew that we launched not a very long time ago. And this is a major plane change because Dress's inclination is no joke. So we're talking, yeah, more than 500 meters per second just to do the plane change. So this is gonna take a while, so we cut for time. And I hope I calculated this properly so that they have enough fuel to get back. We'll see. And as I said, this is the last thing we do in this episode. Next episode we're gonna do something completely different. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!